Hey everyone, it's me Triton, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the recent 1.1 patch for Battlefront 2 that came into effect this past Monday, January 16th. Now I debated creating an initial reactions video, but I really wanted to play in the new environment before commenting. But now that I have, let's dive right into it. First, here are some of the big additions. We have a new blast map on Crate. Now, it's completely new for those of you who haven't played this map in Galactic Assault, but for those of you who have, it's really just the inner mine portion of the map. It plays out like most blast maps. You find enemies within a few seconds, usually in groups of 2 or 3. In short range, fast-firing weapons still reign supreme. Nothing really new there, but it is nice to have another map to play on for that playlist. And it's good that it probably plays out like all the other maps because that's the intent of the actual game mode. The other big addition to the game is Iden Versio's TIE Fighter is now a playable hero in Star Battle Assault. In my opinion, there really isn't anything unique about her fighter other than that it's kind of an upgraded version of the base model, and the addition of Inferno Leader as one of her abilities, which both reveals enemies to allies and adds additional damage to those who are revealed, is probably the only thing that makes it distinct. Milestones for her using her abilities have also been added to the career portion of the main menu, but in my opinion this is a really underwhelming addition, just like Iden Versio is pretty underwhelming all the other times other than the campaign, because her really only appeal here is the fact that she blends in like other TIE fighters, so I didn't feel like I was getting singled out when I was using her like you do when you immediately select Slave 1. But again, Inferno Leader, nothing really new here. It is an ability that the TIE fighters don't have, but otherwise you're just playing an upgraded TIE fighter. Moving on to heroes. 4 heroes were affected by the 1.1 patch. Starting with Finn, he received a reduction to his base damage of his EL-16 from 65 to 45, so a 30% reduction. In order to balance that, they reduced the time before the heat cooldown kicks in from 3.5 to 1.5 seconds, and they also reduced the damage for each of his Deadeye shots from 40 to 30, so 25% there. I think these tweaks probably bring Finn back in alignment with what they originally intended for the character. He was very powerful at times, and I think this makes him, while obviously still a hero, not quite overpowered as some people were calling online. So I think that's a good change there. Phasma had the heat reduced per shot for her F11D. I think that's nice and all, and it did overheat pretty quickly, but we really wanted more updates and changes to her melee ability, particularly her staff. So that's a little disappointing there, but I know they've addressed that. Hopefully more to come. Lando had a bug fix where the maximized efficiency was not properly granting cooldown reduction, so obviously you want something to be fixed, especially if it's bugged out, so good fix there. Boba Fett also received a few nerfs here. He had a reduction to his damage for his rocket barrage from 90 to 78. They reduced the inner damage radius for each of those rockets from 2 to 1.5 meters, and they also reduced the outer damage radius for each of those rockets from 4 to 3 meters. So I think Boba Fett, with his ability to be in flight with his jetpack and just constantly launch rocket barrage, wasn't really overpowered, but it was definitely unique to that character, so kind of reducing that so it's not completely out of hand made some sense. I never really felt Boba Fett needed a lot of tweaks, but the fact that he got these, I don't think these are big deals either. Having played the character, having played against the character since the 1.1 patch came out, I think these are all fine. Okay, well, with heroes out of the way, let's move to the classes and special units update. The Chewbacca Warrior received a reduction to the bowcaster center projectile damage multiplier from 1.3 to 1. They lowered the bowcaster fall-off distance at the start from 20 to 10 meters, and at the end from 30 to 25 meters. They reshuffled bowcaster explosion damage and projectile damage to make fall-off have higher effect, and they increased the bowcaster heat per shot. These were all necessary changes in my opinion. The Wookiee Warrior was a little bit too effective at range. I still think they need to lower the health on him just a little bit more, because I at times I feel he's really just a little bit below Chewbacca, and that's probably not what you want. But at the same time, making the first steps and making him less effective at range and having a stiffer penalty for the shots by increasing the heat were necessary changes. Moving on to the specialists, they reduced the size of the scope glint. They added scope glint to the EL-16 HFE, the A280, the pulse rifle, and Captain Phasma's F11D. They reduced the heat per shot for the Valken 38X, the E5S, the DLT-20A, the DLT-19X, the A280, and the DLT-19D. And then lastly, they increased the burst per minute of all infiltration variants from 100 to 130. So I think the big things here are the scope glint. You know, it was really obvious when someone's sniping. It's nice that it's still pronounced. You could still see it, but it's not nearly as large. And then also making infiltration a little bit more effective. I mean, that really is, outside of melee, the only way specialists can kind of combat somebody at close range and even a little bit medium range, depending on what you're using. So having that be a little bit more effective, I think, makes sense. Moving on to heavy, they reduced the area effect of supercharged and explosive sentry, and they also increased the heat per shot for the supercharged sentry from 0.015 to 0.017. I don't know if that's going to be felt all that much, but I do think that the reduction of the area effect makes a lot of sense, particularly for the explosive sentry. Sometimes it seems like it didn't really make a lot of sense. You know, you were getting killed by this thing from really far away, and you didn't really feel like you were getting hit. You're kind of getting that splash damage. So good changes there, in my opinion. The officer, they reduced explosive damage when turret is destroyed by blaster fire from 150 to 25. They added the ability icons denoting that a player has been boosted by a recharge command, and turrets now have an icon that show when the turret isn't engaging an enemy. I really haven't noticed the second two in any capacity. I usually try to avoid, if I'm getting fired by a turret, I usually just try to avoid it, so I'm usually not out there running around looking at a turret trying to say, hey, are you attacking somebody else? So, but that is a nice change, I think, ultimately. I think the reduction on the explosion of the turret makes a lot of sense. There seemed to be, like, you know, blowing up the turret really penalized the person that put it down if they were close. It probably shouldn't do that. So I think that, again, aligns more with the spirit of what they're trying to accomplish. And I think overall, those are really good changes to the, you know, classes and special units. Again, I think the Wookiee Warrior needs to have his health reduced a little bit more. They also didn't touch the Assault class here, which is interesting. So, you know, maybe probably more to come for that in the future. I want to talk weapons here quickly, specifically the CR2 and the Blurg 1120. What they did is they really just scaled back the range for these. I think the CR2 is the best gun in the game, and it should be the best gun in the game at short range. It is really good at medium range and sometimes at long range, so pulling that back made total sense. It's aligned with what I think they expected. The Blurg 1120, kind of same thing. They don't want that to be nearly as effective at long range. It's still going to be a decently effective gun at medium range, in my opinion, but they also made it harder to kind of land that final shot with it, and they also kind of took away some of the potency of the explosive shot. I'm fine with both of those things. I'm always really a big advocate of people using as many guns and different guns as they can, and they're being balanced. Those guns clearly were two of the most powerful in the game, so they scaled them back a little bit. On the flip side, you'll see more effectiveness for barrage and trip mines. I think trip mines were borderline useless. I don't think I've ever been killed by one in the game so far, and I'm level 35, so that's good that you're going to be able to use one more of them and that they'll stick around longer after you die. Barrage is just getting an overall increase to both its blast radius as well as the explosive damage. Moving on to Galactic Assault. I think the big things here are that you're going to see a reduced explosive objective timer for a majority of the maps. You're also going to see a reduction of battle point cost for the ATST down from 2,500 to 1,500 on some maps. They've lowered the health of like the MT6 and some of the other like really huge vehicles that are in usually stage 1 of Galactic Assault, so I think that makes a lot of sense. And they also updated some spawn points. So I'm going to leave the actual patch notes in a link in the description of the video. I don't want to cover every one of these maps holistically, but those are the changes I've noticed. I've played all of these maps at this point. They all make sense, and I've really enjoyed it so far. Moving on, and kind of the last thing here is strikes. They just did a minor balancing tweaks as well as tweak the bomb timer duration. I think Strike needs a bigger overhaul because I always feel like there's bottlenecks on those maps when someone picks up the objective and it just gets held down by like a barrage of heavy guys. So hopefully there's more things for that in the future. In terms of just general updates, the night variant on the Tatooine map is pretty cool, and I also think that increasing the frequency of alternate lighting variants across all maps provides like a different feel, so I appreciate that as well. Other than that, there's just been some general bug fixes and updates of that nature and instability improvements, which make a lot of sense. But that's it for my video here, guys. Hope you're enjoying the patch 1.1. I know I am. Please leave something in the comment section below if there's something you'd like me to cover. I'm always happy to talk about the game, and there'll be definitely more Battlefront 2 videos to come. But until that time, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video and have a great day.